Hello, good morning, and welcome to the exciting time we talk about business. It's the last trading day of the month, and my name is Blyden Okem. On Business 360 this morning, Trump says he has a group of very wealthy people to buy TikTok. We begin from there. President Donald Trump has said he has a buyer for TikTok, the video sharing app that was banned in the US, amid claims it posed a national security risk. In an interview, Trump said he had a group of very wealthy people willing to acquire the platform, to be disclosed in about 2 weeks. Will probably do it. This month, Trump delayed for a third time the enforcement of a law mandating TikTok's sale. The letter's extension requires parent company partners to reach a deal to sell the platform by 17 September. A previous deal to sell TikTok to an American buyer fell apart in April when the White House clashed with China over Trump's tariff. In Africa, Algeria is taking strategic steps to expand its energy partnership with the United States as tensions over Western Sahara dispute continue to mount. As US interest in the Western Sahara issue intensifies, reports indicate that Washington may be looking to revive stalled negotiations ahead of a key UN Security Council session scheduled for October. The Trump administration is said to support Morocco's 2007 autonomy proposal, prompting Algeria to step up its own diplomatic efforts. In a parallel move on economic fronts, Algeria opened its doors wider to American energy investors. In Ghana, as part of efforts to safeguard Ghana's financial system, the Bank of Ghana has issued a stern warning to Ghanaian and financial service providers to stay clear of specific money transfer organizations, the organizations operating without the required regulatory approval from the Apex Bank. 10 firms were identified for allegedly violating Ghana's financial laws by operating without necessary approvals. Financial providers are instructed to avoid collaboration with these entities or face significant penalties. It further emphasized that all foreign exchange transfers to or from Ghana must be done through licensed operators, stressing that unapproved money transfer organizations not only break the law but also undermine public trust and also expose users to the risks of fraud, data misuse, or loss of funds. And now let's look at the unlicensed organization names in Ghana. Let's look at the table. While the names are specifically identified as ACE Money Transfer, Remit Union in Ghana, Remit Home, Rose Remit, Monty Global, and NairaGram, iTransfer, Horope, Eversen, and others. Selling Africa. Africa's leading financier, the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, has disclosed that its financial support to Dangote Refinery and petrochemical industry has exceeded $4 billion. The bank reported a financial growth, with assets and guarantees increasing to $43.5 billion by April 2025 and net income rising to $1 billion. Afreximbank has disbursed significant investments across Africa, reaching $120 billion between 2020 and 2025 to boost regional production. The president and chairman of the board, Professor Benedict Orama, made the announcement during the closing session of the bank's 32nd annual meeting on Friday. Now operational, the refinery is helping Nigeria reduce petroleum import costs by 10 to 12 billion dollars annually, increasing value-added exports and building a strong industrial foundation. A seal on Dangote Refinery. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery says it will absorb over 1.07 trillion naira annually in its plan to distribute fuel directly to marketers nationwide. The refinery said it invested over 720 billion naira to implement the initiative of deploying 4,000 compressed natural gas powered trucks for the nationwide distribution of petroleum products, saying this was expected to save Nigerians over 1.7 trillion naira annually. The initiative, which aims to eliminate transportation costs for fuel marketers and large-scale consumers, is also expected to help reduce pump prices and inflation. From 15 August, Dangote said it would begin the direct delivery of petrol and diesel to filling stations, industrial facilities, and other high volume consumers. According to the statement, the aim was to meet Nigeria's daily consumption of 65 million liters of refined petroleum products. This includes 45 million liters of premium motor spirit, 15 million liters of diesel, and 5 million liters of aviation fuel. Still in Nigeria. Nigeria, the fourth largest African economy, has seen its total public debt rise to 159.39 trillion naira, approximately $97 billion as of March 31st, 2025. This represents a record increase of 27.72 trillion naira or 22.8% compared to 121.67 trillion naira recorded in the same period last year. Meanwhile, recent financial data shows that Nigeria's external debt now stands at 70.63 trillion naira as of the first quarter of 2025, up from 56.02 trillion naira in the same period in 2024, reflecting a 14.61 trillion naira or 26.1% yearly increase. On a quarter-to-quarter basis, the increase was more modest, with the figure rising marginally by 344 billion naira from 70.29 trillion naira at the closing of the previous year. According to the latest Debt Management Office figures, the country's debt rose by 4.72 trillion naira or 3.3% from 144.67 trillion naira at the end of December 2024. Notably, the disparity between the dollar and the naira growth is the deal in the debt figure highlights the deepening impact of foreign exchange volatility. Multiple observation indicates that while the dollar denominated debt rose by only $3.86 billion, the naira equivalent surge due to the depreciation and incessant servicing of the local currency. A multiple observation indicates that reports show that in the first quarter of 2024, the Central Bank of Nigeria used an exchange rate of 1,330 naira 26 kobo per dollar. Although the official rate for the first quarter of 2025 was not disclosed, the steep rise in naira terms points to a further decline in currency value. Nigeria's public debt has been driven by domestic and external borrowing to fund budget gaps, compounded by the impact of a weakening naira on external debt valuation. And now to the power sector. The Transmission Company of Nigeria (TCN) has announced that it has energized two newly installed power transformers at its 330-132/33 kilovolts Bene Kebbi transmission substation in Kebbi State. The spokesperson of TCN, Ndirimba, made this known in a statement issued on Sunday. According to her, the 100 megavolt amperes MVA and 150 MVA transformers were energized on Friday, June 27, 2025. She stated that the installation of the additional transformers has increased the substation's capacity from 300 MVA to 450 MVA. As a result, the Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company now has an additional 120 megawatts of bulk power for distribution to its customers across Kebbi, Sokoto, and surrounding areas. This development also enables TCN to maintain normal bulk power supply to Niamey, Niger Republic. Elon Musk's firm SpaceX Starlink, a satellite internet provider, has officially resumed activation for customers in Nigeria nationwide. The company disclosed this in an email stating that high-demand customers in Lagos and Abuja, among other cities, are at the forefront of its revival. Recall that between October and November last year, Starlink temporarily paused activations of new customers over the regulatory approvals. This comes after the internet company, with over 60,000 subscribers, arbitrarily increased its subscription prices without the Nigerian Communication Commission's approval in October 2024. And back to Africa. Tanzania, Kenya, and South Africa dominate 2025 World Travel Awards in Dar es Salaam. African nations stood out at the 2025 World Travel Awards WTA Africa and Indian Ocean Gala ceremony held on June 28 at the Johari Rotana Hotel in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. African nations excelled across 80 award categories, showcasing their tourism and hospitality innovation. Countries including Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa, Zambia, and Mozambique emerged as standout winners. Awards spans are from national parks and beach resorts to airlines and private island retreats, each highlighting the continent's commitment to excellence and innovation. Here is a list of popular awards and their recipients and that we saw. Well, such a massive list there. Well, the font being quite tiny there, but we can see from an African point of view, the destination 2025 was Tanzania's Zanzibar, and on and on and on, and the rest of them. Meanwhile, to the road to the grand final, winners from each continent will proceed to the WTA Grand Final, scheduled for December 9th, 2025 in Bahrain. Africa's representative will complete and compete with global counterparts in categories such as World's Leading Destination and World's Leading Sustainable Tourism Initiative for best awards in tourism. And now we'll go on a quick break, and when we're back, Business 360 continues, looking at global economic standings around the world and the markets. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's your Business 360, and my name is Vladimir Kem. And now we'll be looking at global economic standings around the world. The overall unemployment rate in Saudi Arabia fell to 2.8% in the first quarter of 2025 from 3.5% in the fourth quarter of 2024, and marking the lowest level. This rate declined for both Saudi females and Saudi males the over previous quarter. And now to the markets as South Korean won hits 37-week high. The South Korean won strengthened to around 1,349 per dollar today, extending its advance as the greenback weakened amid fiscal concerns and an anticipation of Thursday's U.S. jobs report, which is expected to signal for the labor market cooling. Investor sentiment also improved following the return of trade envoy Yu Han-ku from Washington, where he held the first high-level tariff talks since President Lee's June inauguration, aiming to secure U.S. exemptions from steel, automobile, and reciprocal tariffs ahead of the deadline. On the domestic front, retail sales remained flat month on month in May, following a 0.9% decline in April, underscoring ongoing challenges in consumer demand despite the currency's recent strength. Over the past 4 weeks, a US dollar against South Korean won lost 1.88%, and in the last 12 months, it decreased 2.23%. And now let's look at the line chart indicating the performance of the South Korean won against the US dollars. The chart this morning. Now let's look at a chart that indicates the performance of the US South Korean won against the US dollar. Well, the chart indicates some interesting feature in it. As of September last year, the price of a won was um, quite high, especially when the US dollar is a superior currency against the won. It fell below that line that you're seeing and went below increased rather below that line, 1,325 won to the US dollar. But the US dollar gained momentum and went to a peak point of 1,475 against the won. That is 1,475 won to the dollar. But the won hit another high around that 1,475 point mark. You can see the double header upward and began to increase in value while the US dollar is falling in value. And currently, after early hours of the morning, which the won had hit 1,349 won to the US dollar, is currently at 1,352 won to the US dollar, indicating strength of the won as the dollar is falling against the won. Are still on the market this morning. Let's look at FX updates. Our top currency gainers are South Korean won are gaining 1.23%, and New Zealand dollar 0.54%, and Japanese yen 0.5%, British pound gaining 0.18%, and the euro 0.16%. The biggest losers in the market are dollar index falling a negative 0.35% this morning. Straight to the market then, the euro against the US dollar. And afterwards, we'll look at a case of African currencies and the naira and cryptocurrency. The euro against the US dollar this morning. A market implication for the euro against the US dollar. A price level stands at 1,000 or 1.17 point mark rather, 1.17 US dollar against the euro, with the euro gaining slightly against the dollar and the pound falling slightly against the dollar at 1.36 point mark. The Australian dollar also gaining slightly against the US dollar. And now let's look at the US dollar against the African currencies. A US dollar against African currencies. A US dollar against Nigerian naira price level stands at 1,538 naira to the US dollar, the dollar falling by 5.6 points. And then the US dollar against South African rand at 17.8 rand to the US dollar, the dollar falling this morning against most of the African currency against the rand. And Zimbabwean kwacha next at 23.6 kwacha, not Zimbabwean, Zambian kwacha rather, 23.6 kwacha against the US dollar, the dollar falling by 0.05 a point against the kwacha, and the Egyptian pound also being stronger than the US dollar this morning. Relatively, the US dollar has been struggling in the morning market at 49 Egyptian pound to the US dollar. And now let's look at the state of the naira generally with the major currencies in the world. The US dollar against the naira and the rest of them. The US dollar market, as we said earlier, the dollar has fallen by 5.6 points against the naira this morning, but the euro also falling against the naira at negative 5 points against the naira at 1,803 naira to the euro, and the pound also falling by 9 points against the naira 2,107 naira to the Egyptian pound. And finally, let's look at the cryptocurrency before we talk about other markets. The cryptocurrency in the financials. Cryptocurrency indicates the price of Bitcoin this morning. Most of the crypto coins are downward. Bitcoin falling by 753 a point at 107,629 US dollar. Ether falling. Binance also dropping. Cardano, Solana, Ripple all on the negative. And now let's talk about some of the biggest markets in the world as oil falls on easing Mid-East tensions amid prospects of more OPEC Plus oil. WTI crude oil futures dropped to around $66.50 per barrel today after its sharpest weekly decline in over 2 years. Amid easing tensions in the Middle East and the possibility that OPEC Plus will further increase its oil output. Crude prices tumbled over 11% last week, its worst week since March 2023, as the Israel-Iran truce continues to hold, alleviating fears of a broader conflict that could disrupt crude oil from the region. However, Iran doubts the US brokered ceasefire with Israel will last, a warning of retaliation if strikes resume. Meanwhile, President Trump suggested he might back eventual sanctions relief for Iran if they can be peaceful. A further weighing on prices, reports indicated that OPEC Plus was set to boost output by 411,000 barrels per day in August, following a similar hike already planned for July. Meanwhile, investors are also keeping a close eye on trade development as the July 9 deadline set by the Trump administration for finalizing trade agreements approaches. And now to the market, the energy market first, and next the metals and agricultural markets. The energy market. Energy commodities always begin with the price of a U.S. crude oil, and crude oil price standing at 65 US dollars per barrel, falling by 0.178 point. Brent, which represents Nigeria's price benchmark, at 66.5 US dollars per barrel, dropping 0.144 points. Quickly, let's look at other markets, the metal markets. A metal market comes with its possibility. The metal market begins with the price of gold, and a gold price are quite difficult in recent times, but building momentum to 3,284 US dollars per ounce, gaining 16.33 point, 0.5 percentage appreciation. Silver price gaining 0.33%, copper price falling by negative 0.44%, and we're talking about a price of steel 2,962 Chinese yuan per ton, with no significant change in the market. Agricultural market. Agricultural market indicates a price of soybeans at 1,029 US dollars per bushel, gaining 1.32 points, a 0.13 percentage appreciation, with price at 526 US dollars per bushel, also gaining 1.41 a point this morning. Lumber, in fact, lumber at 626.15 one per 1,000 board feet, upward by 8.02 points on a monthly basis. It's been that of mixed fortune for some of these commodities. As we close, let's look at the stock market, equity market, as Japanese shares track Wall Street rally. The Nikkei 225 jumped 1.4% to surpass 40,700, while the broader Topix index rose 0.8% to 2,863 today, with both benchmarks reaching the highest level in nearly a year. Well, as you can see, the numbers and different components of it, the rally mirrored gains on Wall Street, where major US indexes hit new record highs amid easing tariff risks and receding geopolitical tensions. However, trade frictions between Japan and the US remains unresolved, as a 25% US tariff on Japanese car imports continues to be a sticking point in bilateral negotiation with little signs of progress. On the domestic front, industrial production data for May came in weaker than expected, although investor sentiment remained upbeat. Technology stocks led the charge with notable gains from Disco 3.1%, Lacertec 1.3%, Advantage 2.7%, Tokyo Electron 2.3%, and SoftBank Group 5%. As we close, let's look at African stock markets. African stock market indicators changes in the stock market. Well, Nigerian stock at number one at an index level of 119,966 point, losing 786 basis point. But the rest of the African stocks seem to be positive this morning, talking about Egyptian stocks and Nairobi stocks and the rest of them. It's the story of the market and direction that comes with it. And here we draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Blyden Ukem, and thank you for watching.